Excellent, fantastic. Okay, greetings from Bangkok. So we've got quite a bit to get through in 1 hour. It's a pleasure to share this topic with you today. We've got Bangkok, we've got Singapore. Raphael, good to hear from you, buddy. If you're joining us for the first time here at Coachology, then welcome to Coachology. My name's Luke. I will be your host this evening. And for those of you who are joining us again, welcome back to Wednesday webinars. These were a regular during lockdown for about almost 2 full years. We were doing webinars every week or every other week. And this topic, sustainable change is a topic that I'm very passionate about. We recently facilitated a 2 hour face-to-face session with the German Thai Chamber of Commerce in Bangkok, and it was received very, very well. So I thought, why don't we put a condensed version together in just 1 hour to demystify this sustainable change? So I'll be sharing the screen. We'll go through. Feel free to take screenshots as you need. And if you have any questions, drop those into the chat box as well. So, again, for those who are just meeting Coachology for the first time, hello. These are just some of the organizations that me and my team are working with all around the region, from Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, obviously, Cambodia, Myanmar, Maldives, one of the favorite, Dubai, and Saudi Arabia, and on and on and on. So, these techniques that I'll be sharing with you today, I have been sharing these same change management techniques with some of these multinational organizations here. So rest assured, what we're covering today is world class. As I am in a storm at the moment, if something weird happens, like I mute myself or something weird goes on, if someone can just unmute themselves and say, "Hey, Luke, we can't see your screen or we can't hear you," then that would be amazing. All right, so according to a study done by McKinsey, 70% of organizational change initiatives fail, which is a very, very large number. Now, here at Coachology, we don't pretend to be one of these massive, big consultant companies. However, we do work with senior leadership teams. We do work with consulting and restructuring the learning and development journey for organizations. So when I dove into this study a little bit more, it's like 70%. Why is that number so high? And the key reasons why most of these change initiatives fail is, number one, there is some form of employee pushback. Right? Pushback shows up as resistance. It shows up as employees not buying in. But even probably more challenging than employees not buying in, especially at the employee level, is when the manager or the leader is having resistance, right? So many times change comes from where? The big boss. And we all have a big boss, right? A big, big boss. I don't know where Coach Christie is now, but we all have a big, big boss somewhere, right? And so even if you are a senior leader in an organization, chances are you have a global headquarters, or you've got a CEO or the president or the founder or whatever. There's always going to be a big, big boss. And so some of the most of the challenges that are going to be faced in a change initiative process is when the leaders and the managers are resisting the process, because technically they are an employee as well. And I guarantee you, if the leader is resisting, then his or her team are not going to have the buy-in either. And this is what this conversation sounds like, right? Imagine this. I'm a senior leader, and then I've got my team together, whether it's 10 or 100 or however many. And then I pitch the change like this. All right, team, we've got this change management thing going on. It's come from the big boss. I know. We just did something similar 6 months ago and another 6 months before that, but let's do it again. Well, that attitude from that leader, it's going to be a lose-lose. No one is going to win from that perspective. And of course, that's going to trickle down to all of the rest of the organization. So, employee pushback, including leaders, shows up as resistance. The other reason why change fails is a lack of management support, right? And this can show up in two main ways. In addition to what I just mentioned there, where the leader is resisting, it can show up as having a poor vision of what this change looks like. In other words, what are the benefits of this change? What is the purpose of this change? Why is this change going to be important for our customers and or the longevity and the sustainability of the company? None of that is number one. There is not a clear vision, and so then people say, "Oh, we're just changing because the big boss said so, and let's do it." So there's no clear vision that's communicated from the top all the way down, and if there's no clear vision or there's a poor vision, then of course there's going to be poor communication as well, right? So if the vision is not clear, then of course the communication will be even less clear as it goes through those levels of hierarchy within the organization, depending on where that change is coming from. So this 70% here, most of it is coming from this resistance, the employee pushback, and the poor vision or the lack of vision, and then the poor communication. Now, my interpretation of that is that when you add these two elements together, we get what we call a fixed mindset, where a fixed mindset does not want to change. A fixed mindset is very happy with the status quo. A fixed mindset wants to kind of stay in that comfort zone and do the things that we've always done. Now, clearly, in today's ever changing political, geopolitical, economic things that are going on in the world right now, having that fixed mindset is absolutely not going to work. And you only need to remember the stories with blockbuster videos, Nokia telephones, and Kodak. You know, they all resisted the change process. They all believed in continuing doing things the same old way. And well, for those three organizations, they really no longer exist anymore. So this is what is going to get us to the root cause here. In order to create sustainable change, we need to find the opposite of a fixed mindset. And that's what we're going to call a growth mindset. So here is the comfort zone, which can apply to the individual, but it can also apply to the organization. Again, Blockbuster Video, Nokia, Kodak, they were all organizations, while they had been successful for many, many years, things started to change, the market started to change, the consumers' needs started to change, but they were not willing to change. They may have been number one, in fact, for a long, long time, and they became complacent. They became stuck in their comfort zone. And of course, this happens individually as well. You might have a leader in the organization that has that fixed mindset. So when the change initiative comes, and here's the thing, the change initiative could be good. The change, there might be a clear vision for the change. The vision might be communicated clearly as to the purpose and the benefits of that change. Yet, if you have those group of leaders or those group of employees in the organization that have a very fixed and rigid point of view, then you could have the best change process in the world. You could have one of the top 4 consulting companies come in to help you to navigate that change process. And if the leaders themselves have this fixed and rigid mindset, then all of that will be lose-lose. The organization will lose a ton of money and the change will not be initiated, and they'll be one of those 70% that fail. So in order for us as individuals to grow to the next level, we have to have this growth mindset, which is about being willing to get out of the comfort zone, because this is where the change is going to happen. By its very definition, in the comfort zone, this is everything that you know, everything that is familiar, everything that you've done in the past. Well, in order to change, we must be willing to do something different. By its definition, change is an evolution. It's growing to the next level. And so for many of us, we're stepping into unknown territory. We're stepping into areas that we don't know that we don't know. And that can be scary. That can be one of the resistances that employees have. But one thing is for sure, the change is going to happen out here. It is not going to happen in here. Okay, just quickly checking my chat box there. We're all good. Fantastic. So this is what it means to have a growth mindset, is this kind of an appreciation and awareness that at least for yourself, and if you're in a leadership role, that's a good thing. But to have this growth mindset is to be open-minded and curious to discover the things that we don't know, that if we did know, would help us to navigate this change process successfully. Right. So again, when we think about change, there are things that and you know your job function and you know the systems and the processes, and that's pretty good. But there's also things within the organization that you know that you don't know. Maybe you're not too familiar with that system and process over there in that department. And when you just look at yourself individually, there's thousands of things that we don't know that we don't know. But this is where it gets really interesting with change management. There is a ton of stuff as you are going through change, individually, a small group, an organization, there are going to be things that we don't know that we don't know. And again, this creates a lot of fear in a lot of people. And this is where part of that resistance comes from, especially in the employees and in some of the leaders themselves. So in order for us to navigate change, we really need to be open minded to get out of that comfort zone, to discover these things that we don't know, that if we did know, would help us navigate this process. Now, that actually brings us to the second point of why most change fails. In addition to the poor vision, it's the poor communication. See, imagine a world where inside of the organization, the communication is really, really open. We kind of move through these silos. We encourage the teams to have a kind of a growth open mindset, and we're curious to discover what this person knows or what their opinion is or what feedback might they give or what suggestion do they have and so on. So it's going to be really, really important to have this open mindset. Now, let's take a look at this resistance thing again, though, because it comes up again and again and again, and it's one of the main reasons that change fails. So let's take a look. What is happening within the individual, right, that causes this resistance to change? Because this resistance to change, it could be conscious, meaning that the people are aware that they're just like, no, I don't want to change. Or it could be unconscious, meaning they're not exactly aware of it, yet clearly their behavior shows that they want to resist the process, that they're not buying in to the process. So one of the main resistances to change is uncertainty, right? If the comfort zone is what we know, then outside of the comfort zone is unknown. And for many people, the unknown, that uncertain, it's like, oh no, I don't want to go there. So that's how the resistance shows up. Interestingly, it can be a high level of competence, meaning that someone might say, I don't think that'll work, because they may be very knowledgeable in that area, yet they might have a fixed mindset as well. Or it could be a lack of competence. And competence is simply skill, right? So if I feel like I don't have enough skill or training or abilities, then yeah, I'm probably going to resist change. An attachment to the current state. So this is how it is now. Let's just stay here. Nothing's broken. Let's just keep going like this, even though it might be broken, or even though the change management might benefit everyone. People are still stuck inside of their comfort zone. Not prepared to consider the new. That's the fixed mindset scenario. Like, why would I consider anything new? I'm just going to look at the world through this lens and everything is going to be fine. Tell me in the chat box, please. What else? What are some other causes of this resistance to change? What do you think some of them might be? Tell me in the chat box, please. What are some of the other resistances to change? Where did my chat box go? There it is. What else causes this resistance to change? Feel free to drop it into the chat box. Yes, Sarah, fear of the unknown. Yes, Simon, fear. As we say in Australia, fear, with our beautiful Aussie accent. Right? What else? Give me some more answers, guys, please. Give me some more answers. What else? What kind of things are showing up to resistance? Yeah, an impact on productivity or KPI, complacency. Yep. Perhaps a lack of confidence, a fear of failing. Nice one, Wadi. So this lack of confidence is this lack of, the lack of confidence is also linked to the lack of competence, the lack of the skill, or a fear of failing. Yep. So clearly fear is a big one. Thank you everyone for sharing. I think I've got a few more points here. Previous negative change experience. So maybe the person has gone through a change before, or maybe more than once. And statistically, if 70% of change initiatives fail, then we've probably all gone through at least 2 or 3 failed change initiatives within our career, if not more. So, yeah, if we've had a previous negative experience, it's not really uplifting us to do it again. Now, fear is this big one. So, fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of failure, as someone mentioned. And did you know that some people unconsciously, we even have fear of success? Right? Some people, believe it or not, we have a fear of success. Now, it's very unconscious. It's part of our programming linked to our belief systems, and it shows up as sabotage, right? When we self-sabotage ourselves. Now, it's unconscious, so it's not like we're doing it on purpose. And it can show up through these change management processes. Not knowing how to start or not knowing where to start. Now, the reason this happens is because the change initiatives, it seems so big and it's not yet been broken down into these small bite-sized pieces. So what happens is we feel a bit of overwhelmed. We perhaps procrastinate because of the fear and wanting to stay in the comfort zone and these other things. And so, yeah, when it's not broken down into those small chunks, we can get kind of a bit of paralysis going on. Now, neurologically, when we think about our brain and our body and how that's all linked neurologically, we have our old habits and our old programs. Our programs are things like our belief systems, our personality, all of your previous experiences, your preferences, your biases, and all of these kinds of things. These are all part of your programs and part of your habits. So think about it. Whenever you wanted to change a bad habit, it can be a little bit tough. And so navigating a change process, whether you're wanting to change something in your own life or wanting to change something in an organization, we do need to overcome this path of least resistance. That's what habits and programs are. It's the neurological path of least resistance. And because the body is working to conserve your energy, it's always going to revert back to the path of least resistance if we allow it, right? Which is exactly what's happening inside of the comfort zone. Now, again, neurologically, when we're looking to create a new behavior or we're looking to implement a new system or a new process, think about it. Have you ever been working in an organization and they say, all right, we're going to use this new piece of software. Everyone has to do it and it's mandatory. and we want you to learn it now. And then, those first couple of hours, like, where's the icon? Which number do I press? It's like when I haven't used Zoom for a couple of months and then I log back in and they've done an update and all the buttons are in new places. So now my old habits and neural pathways, they don't know exactly which way to go, right? So when we need to create a new habit, when we're learning a new process or a system or a way of doing, it takes a little bit of discipline to create those new neural pathways. And it's okay, it can be done, and it just needs repetition, repetition, repetition. So these are all things to consider of why people resist change. Now, I want to talk about this quickly. In your sphere of control, and at the moment, I want to address the individual, right? So this is how, if because here's the thing, you could be in the middle of a change process and you could be a leader. So your big boss is giving you the instructions, we're going to do this change. And then so you have to be able to clearly communicate that vision to the rest of your team. Is that easy or hard, guys? Tell me, easy or hard? Yeah, can be easy, can be hard. It really depends on the whole process, which we're going to look at. Now, with the inner control, there are certain things that are within your control. You can control your mindset. You can control your emotions. You can control whether you accept the change or that you reject the change. And so there are many things that are within your inner control. Then we get to the outer control. So these are the things that are happening outside of you, which it might seem like you don't have direct control. However, you might be able to influence the situation. So, for example, and this is what came up when we did our session with GTCC. Imagine this scenario. You are a senior leader. The big boss, whoever the big boss is, it's global, it's headquarters, it's whatever. They say, okay, Bob, we're going to do this change. You're in charge of Thailand. I want you to roll this change out in Thailand. Now, it might seem that that's 100% out of your control and that you can't do anything about it. But here's the thing. What if headquarters or global, whoever's trying to push this change initiative through, what if you feel like that it won't work? Now, this isn't just because you have a hunch or you have this emotion like, my intuition tells me this is not going to work. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about that you have received this information from headquarters. You've done your due diligence, right? You've collected data, you've analyzed the data, you've spoken to your team, and you've really looked at this change process initiative that's being implemented by headquarters. And you think, with this careful analysis, you actually think quite strongly that it will not work. So now you're within your inner control, but it's still coming from headquarters, right? So what do? Headquarters is saying do this. After a careful analysis, you believe that in your department, in your country, if you're the boss of Thailand, for example, you really strongly think and feel that it won't work. What do? Do you just surrender and say, okay, boss? Maybe. Maybe that's an option. But one of the things that Christy and I live by, one of our principles is to always do your best. To always do your best. So if you really think and feel with that data and that analysis, you think that it's not going to work, then you have the opportunity to voice out your opinion. And not just, again, not an opinion or an intuition, but based on fact and data that can say, okay, headquarters, I appreciate this. Listen, we've looked at this, we've done a market survey, we've done all of this due diligence, blah, 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 whatever you've done. My suggestion is that we park it or that we go in a slightly different direction. Now, here's the thing. maybe the big boss listens to you and they say, okay, that's really interesting. We really appreciate that fresh perspective. Thank you for bringing that up. We definitely were not aware of that. This is really important. Okay, we'll regroup. Maybe we need to change direction. Let's just pause things. Maybe that's one response from headquarters, or it might be the opposite, and headquarters says, well, look, yeah, nice work, good job. We're going to do this change anyway. Right? Then what do you do? What do you do? You have a choice, right? And I'm sharing this specific example because I believe many of you are in this kind of position on the call today or watching the recording where you sometimes feel like the meat in the sandwich. You've got the big boss, whoever the big boss is, and then you've got your team, and you're kind of between this rock and a hard place to communicate this to the masses. So step number one is you agree with the change and you say, okay, and then you execute. And we'll get to that part in a moment. Step number two is that you voice it up and you say, listen, boss, I don't think this will work. Here are my reasons why. We recommend option B or option C. When you've done that, as the senior leader in your organizational department, wherever you're based, now you have done your best. And so if headquarters say, listen, thanks for the information, but no, we're going to go ahead with plan A, exactly as we've said, then you have a choice. You can suddenly say to the headquarters, okay, I've shared my opinion, I've shared the data and analytics. I surrendered to the process. Let's go with option A. And then because here's the thing, you need to be on the bus or you need to be off the bus. And what do I mean by off the bus? You might decide that this new direction in which the company going is not for you. And that's okay. Right now, of course, I'm not encouraging everyone to resign from their job because they have a differing opinion of what the big boss just told you. Keep in mind, there could be something that you don't know that you don't know. So when you do find this courage to speak up and share your opinions and your point of view and your perspectives with the big boss, you can ask as many questions as you like, and then maybe they will share something with you that you did not know that you did not know. Maybe there's a longer play happening, a 3 to 5 year plan, something more strategic that you don't know about. But here's the thing, once you've done your best, you've shared your perspectives, you've backed it up with data, and you've asked all the questions you want to answer, but they still go with option A, then you really need to decide to get on the bus. Because here's the thing, if you are not fully on board with it, with HQ, and then you go to try to empower and motivate and inspire your team where secretly you don't agree with it, then you're going to get a high level of resistance within you. And then of course your team will reflect that back to you because they'll have a sense that you don't believe it or that you don't buy into it. Right. So it's really important and it's only a decision that you can make. No one can help you with that. And at some point, you need to decide to be on the bus or you need to be off the bus. And that's okay. That's a personal decision that you need to make. And it absolutely depends on psychological safety in the workplace. And yes, Jane, you, as part of that discussion that you have with headquarters, it could be a pilot program, an iteration. Let's, instead of doing it company wide, let's just try it within this department. So there are many, many ways. And thank you guys so much for sharing. And then when we talk about this sphere of control, sometimes you have no control and you need to get yourself to a point of acceptance. And we're going to come back to this word in a moment because this is very, very important, right? For your, not only for your mental health, but to actually successfully navigate change initiatives and to be able to do so in a sustainable way. Sometimes, if it is outside of your control and headquarters have said, then you need to accept it, which means getting on the bus. So, the main point here that is you might feel like sometimes you have no control, but I want you to know that you do have an element of influence. And that starts with this ability and this willingness to get out of your own comfort zone to speak up. Because here's the thing, if you speak up and the company says, nope, we're still going for plan A, then you did your best. You can sleep well at night knowing that you shared your wisdom, that you shared your perspective, your point of view, that maybe you were sharing something that they did not know that they did not know. You did your best. So you won't have any regrets or any guilt around this process. Cool? Awesome. All right. So this 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 is what I want to share, this little diagram here. So this is how we hope change happens. Now, this can be your individual change, this can be a departmental change, or it can be an organizational change. Generally speaking, this process is the same, regardless of the size of the change or the number of people involved. And it kind of looks like this. If this is positive emotion and this is negative emotion over here, and along this axis we have time. So here we are. We're plodding along in life, la-di-da, la-di-da. Everything is quite nice. And then we have a goal and we think we want to achieve this goal. Now, what is the goal? The goal is the successful change initiative. Again, whether it's you because you want to change condos, you want to move from this condo and you want to move to that city or country or condo or whatever, or you're implementing a new software or you're doing something, the goal, the end goal is that successful change process, whatever it might be. So we think, we have our eyes on the prize. So we think, yeah, easy peasy. It's just going to go up there like that. Now, the reality is, it does take a little bit of hard work. So our positive emotion, we might get a little bit frustrated from time to time. We work longer hours, maybe we're spending less time with the family, we're navigating this change process. But one thing is for sure, we are aware of the change. We know the benefits of the change. We know the change is going to happen. Chances are we do have a growth mindset to help the process along, and we've accepted that the change is going to happen. Then, especially within the organization, we're going to have people that are proactive, that are driving the change. We will tap into our resourcefulness. So did you know, like we've never had more resources available to us than in any of human history. Think about it. We've got a computer in our pocket, and now with this AI thing, my goodness. So it's never that we don't have enough resources. It means that we need to be more resourceful with the resources that we do have. And then, of course, we have teamwork. So, in the organizational process, when we bring all this together, whoopsie, then of course we're starting to focus on results, right? We're all working together. We're a high performing team. So, yeah, there's a little dip here. And that's just because it's a little bit of hard work. There might be a little bit of resistance. Now, this is how we hope that change happens. Please, change happen like this. Now, I think most of us know, does all change happen like this? Yes or no? Probably not. No, probably not. So, this is how change really happens in most organizations. So, here we go. We're just plodding along. We're very happy with the status quo. We're chugging along. We might be hitting our targets or whatever's going on, but then there's some kind of change announced. It can be 1,000 different things. There's a new competitor in the market. We're bringing in a new product. We're stopping to run this product. We're changing the software. Moving to a matrix organizational structure. Someone's buying us. We're buying another company. We're merging with this company or that company. Choose your change. It doesn't matter. But at some point, change is announced. And very quickly and very sharply, the organization moves from a on average, a positive emotion down to a negative emotion. Why? Why does this happen? Well, because when that change is announced, we are denying. We're saying, no, 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 we don't want to change. It's working fine. Don't change it. So we deny. And then we have that fear, as we mentioned before, and we have that uncertainty, the uncertainty of the unknown and the unfamiliar, and all of those different levels of fear that we mentioned earlier. Right? So this is all part of this resistance. So, in addition to this, and now it comes down and it comes down now with even more resistance, there's going to be shock. I remember when I worked for Procter and Gamble in Australia. I'd been there for 5 years, and most of us were straight out of high school. It paid well, and we'd improved the efficiency. Things were running like a well-oiled machine, chug-a-lug-lug, chug-a-lug-lug. We were having like 95% efficiencies on these production lines. And then lo and behold, they announced, we're moving the operation to Thailand. Huh? So, yeah, there was resistance, there was shock, there was anger. Basically, everyone was made redundant. Now, eventually, what happens? The teams or the individuals within the team, eventually, over time, they get to a point of acceptance. Now, sometimes that acceptance is, I surrender. Okay, I'll get on the bus. But this resistance might have been happening for a day, a week, a month, a couple of months. Like, it really obviously depends on how big of the change process is. But eventually, people will get to some point of acceptance. Now, of course, not everyone does. And what will ultimately happen is if the individual does not, sorry, if the individual does not come to this point of acceptance, they are often asked to leave the company or they'll resign on their own accord. And again, it happened to me even longer ago when I was working in Koh Samui. I was working in hotels. And when I started work at Rocky Resort, it was a 2-star coconut wood construction, little bungalows on a beautiful little beach in Koh Samui. We had a visionary boss. He wanted to turn it into a 4-star boutique resort in less than 4 months. So there was a lot of construction going on. Now, what became clear very quickly is that some of the team, they were not willing to change. They still had this kind of 2-star mentality where they were just slow and they just didn't have that kind of quality of service that we were looking for. So they were simply asked to leave. Perhaps you'd like to work somewhere else. Here's your salary till the end of the month. See you later. Now, of course, you'd follow Thai law or Singapore law or wherever you are in the country that you are. But basically, the team members, they either get on the bus or they get off the bus and then they leave the company because they resign or because they're terminated. Now, here's the change. We want to go over to here. So sometimes we need to nag the teams. Come on, come on, come on. And so we're nagging them and we're dragging them. Some will get on the bus, some will get off the bus. You might get some kind of teamwork and then you'll eventually get there, right? But it's pretty painful. And you can spend, when I say you, I mean the organization can spend a lot of time getting to this point of acceptance. Now, let's take a look at the root causes here. So, and again, this is in addition to our change management consulting that we've done with organizations. A lot of it is because of a fixed mindset and that lack of the vision, right? They don't have the clear vision of why this change process needs to happen. And so this fixed mindset, especially from the upper leadership team with the lack of the why or the vision, that will lead to a lack of communication, right? So unclear communication. And remember, every time that we are not communicating with their teams, they're over here in fear and uncertainty. right? And even worse is if we give them the message, but we're not on the bus, they can tell that we have the resistance. How on earth can we help them get on the bus if we're not on the bus ourselves? Right? So that shows up as a lack of communication and a lack of support. And then eventually people give up. They say, all right, okay, I'm on the bus. All right, yeah, I'll be a good boy. I'll be a good girl. Or they give up by leaving your organization. And that, of course, leads to demotivation, right? So they're not navigating this change process enthusiastically. They're very demotivated with the process. So let's take a look at the realistic model for change. Again, individually, within your team, or within the organization. Here we are. So we have an ongoing growth mindset training. Now, don't be afraid of this word training. I simply mean that this ongoing growth mindset, it's like a principle that you instill within your organization, and it starts with the vetting process before you hire people. I'm sure many of you would agree that it's easier to develop someone's skills than it is to develop someone's attitude, right? So we always want to hire for attitude. Skills can be learned for the most part. And so by having a value, an organizational value of having a growth mindset, then it can become part of the onboarding process. It can become part of the interview process, even before you bring them on board, to have that growth mindset, to know that the next level of success means getting out of the comfort zone. It means embracing the unknown. It means being comfortable, being uncomfortable in unknown and unfamiliar territory. So as we have and we instill this growth mindset throughout the organization, right? Not just for the new employees coming on, it's got to start at the top. I tell you, one of the biggest frustrations that I have as a professional facilitator and as a professional coach is when I'm brought into an organization and I'm working with the leadership team, and I'm talking the more senior level leader, and they're really into it. They love the training. I'm sharing these growth mindset principles and lots of other stuff. And then many of them have confided in me after the training, and they said, look, Luke, this has been amazing. Like, I'm definitely going to use this for myself personally. But they say, Luke, just between me and you, the big boss doesn't get it. The big boss is so rigid. They're such a dinosaur. They're doing this commanding and demanding, and it's like a dictatorship. And, while we appreciate this, Luke, individually, we just don't know if we can affect any change because of these dinosaurs. Right, and I've seen that on more than one occasion. And so, yeah, in my perfect world, I love, love, love working with the very senior leadership team, because I know if I can have a positive impact at that level, then it will trickle down within the organization. So now a change is announced. And okay, at this moment here, so remember, we already have the ongoing growth mindset kind of philosophy, if you like, throughout the organization. That's going to make your life much, much easier. Then the change is announced, but it's announced with clear communication of the vision and of the why this change is important. And I think many senior leaders overlook the fact that these rank and file staff and employees down here, if they don't know what's going on, it creates fear and uncertainty. And fear and uncertainty equals resistance. So you need a communication strategy to take it from the high strategic level to distribute that message in a very, very clear way about why this is important. What is the purpose of this change? And what is the other question that people are asking? How is this change going to affect me? How is this change going to affect me? So you want to be able to answer that question for them in advance, right? So we really need to step into the shoes of those different levels of individuals within the organization and answer that question in advance. Now, look what happens. Acceptance comes right back over here. Acceptance isn't over here. You bring acceptance all the way back to over here. So the timeline of the acceptance is much, much shorter rather than much, much longer and more painful. Now, a much higher percentage of the team will get to this point of acceptance with the clear communication, with the vision and the why. And you still need to support the team, right? And so there will still be individuals in the team that might be showing some kind of resistance. Now, we can't just say that, oh, this group of people are resisting because of this, or this people is resisting because of that. The truth is, we don't really know until you start to have some one-on-one conversations with those key players that are involved, right? So this is where your coaching comes in, your leadership coaching. You want to, at least with your direct reports, speak to them, set up a 30-minute conversation and ask them, how do you feel about this change? What is something that I don't know that I don't know? Do you have a perspective that might help us with this navigation of this successful change process? Like, tell me something that I haven't considered yet. Like, what is the elephant in the room that the team are talking about, but somehow this upper management team are missing out on? So this happens through coaching conversations where you can help them develop their growth mindset and to overcome their fear. Sometimes all we need as humans is to be able to express ourselves, to speak up. And as soon as we say these fears out loud, many times they're gone, right? Just by having that safe space to be able to express ourselves fully. The other thing that you want to do here, obviously, the support is ongoing, the coaching is ongoing, but you do absolutely want to help the individuals within the organization. So, your direct reports and the other individuals within their team, you want to help them to create some KPI, some key performance indicators, some specific outcomes, outputs, whatever you want to call them. We need to be working individually towards a goal in each department that is linked to the successful change outcome that we're looking for. So that's what's going to happen here. And of course, that might be a little bit of hard work and there might be a little bit of negative emotion going on. But again, if you've got that growth mindset, if you've communicated it clearly and you're backing it up with coaching, support, and smart goals, now it becomes very, very measurable and accountable. And it's easier to monitor as you're going through this change process. So now, with the clear communication, here's the goal. That's what we're working towards. Now, over here, you might do some more mentoring as well. So you'll share some of your best practices, tips, and tricks. This is where you'll learn from some of your colleagues. Because maybe Mary went through a similar change in the last company that she worked at 6 years ago. Or maybe Bob had a big failure in another company and we can learn from that failure. So we kind of like support each other through this peer mentoring and knowledge sharing and even reverse mentoring, right? Where, you get someone younger in the organization to say, can you explain this AI thing to me, please? I'm pretty sure it's important for this change management process. And at 50 plus years, I'm struggling. Where's the intern? Where's someone who's much younger than me that understands this AI stuff, for example? So with the mentoring, you model a successful change. So one of the best ways to navigate change is to find someone, including an individual and or an organization, find someone who's already done it. If you find someone who's already navigated that change process, then no need to reinvent the wheel. What strategy did they use? What can you replicate from that? Adjusting as necessary to your change. And then, of course, that's going to create massive synergy and teamwork. Cool, cool. Any questions? Feel free to drop them on the chat box or any other insights. I'm here to learn from you guys as well. Now, ongoing growth mindset training, right? So, the short answer of creating sustainable change, demystifying sustainable change in 2025, it has to start here with this growth mindset. And we need to have that at every level of the organization. You know, those older, more experienced leaders, the ones that think they know everything, the glass is already full. That's what a fixed mindset looks like. They're kind of declaring to the world that I know everything. I've got nothing else to learn. My glass is full. We're going to do it this way. Yet there is obviously many, many things they don't know that they don't know, but they don't get that yet. Right. And so this is the key element here that I wanted to really express today is this importance of having this growth mindset. Because if you can have that within the organization, I promise you any change initiative moving forward will be much, much easier. And so how do you do this training? How do you encourage the team to think this way? Well, first, let's address some of the truths about change. Here are the facts about change. Change is inevitable. Yes or no? Is change going to happen, Adrian? Yes or no? Yep. It's inevitable. It means that change is going to happen, either individually in your organization. I mean, look what's happening in the US right now. My goodness, right? So change is inevitable. That's a truth. That's a fact. Change is the only constant. And by constant, I mean change is the only guarantee in life. Change is going to happen. So the sooner that we can embrace change, the more we can respond to the change instead of reacting to the change. And what's a reaction? The reaction is the old program, that fear, that uncertainty, all of those old programs that have been holding us back. Getting out of the comfort zone is the next level of success. So, what do I mean by that? If you want to get promoted, yes. If you want to earn more income, more money, yes. If you want to start your own business, a side business, a side hustle, yes, yes, yes. All of that means doing something different. And it means you must get out of the comfort zone to grow to that next level of success. Well, guess what? Getting out of your comfort zone is a change. It means embracing the uncertainty, to know that there are things that you don't know that you don't know, but you have a growth mindset. You're open and curious, and you will become very, very resourceful, and you'll find a way to get the information that you need to help you to navigate that change. As we mentioned in the last little diagram, coaching and mentoring support the change process through the uncertainty. If you let Billy and Bob sit over there in the corner and you don't support them through this uncertainty and this change process, the level of fear and anxiety and then therefore resistance will go through the roof. So you must make time to have these one-on-ones with your team and simply ask them, what is going on? How can I support you? What concerns do you have? What am I missing? What do I don't know that I don't know? If nothing changes, then nothing changes, right? So if we don't change, then we're not going to improve our life. Now, no judgment here. If you just want to continue to live your life like this, knock yourself out. But I'm pretty sure if you've invested your time to be with me here this evening, that no, that's not you. And so change is inevitable. It's going to happen. Why don't we do it with a smile on our face? Your next salary increase, your next promotion, all of that involves change and growth. Now, here's another beautiful golden question that I want to share with you. I've used this in one-on-one conversations. I've used this with executives in XCOM sessions and strategic sessions. Let me pull back the diagram. Here's the question. What needs to happen to get to acceptance, right? So we're over here and you've noticed a couple of individuals are still having some kind of resistance. And so you start doing your one-on-ones with them. And, again, you're creating psychological safety. You're asking them questions. You're not judging them. You're not hitting them with a stick, right? Because now they're already outside of their own comfort zone. So most likely they are uncertain. It's unfamiliar territory and there is some level of fear. At some point, you can ask the question, tell me, Bob, what needs to happen to get to a point of acceptance with this change? What needs to happen? Now, it's such a powerful question because Bob will tell you. Bob will tell you his fear. Bob will tell you his resistance. Mary will tell you her concerns. Now, you must be able to create that safe environment for them to share that with you. And so I've done webinars before on psychological safety. You can take a look at our YouTube channel, just search Coachology on YouTube. But yeah, and that's an ongoing process too, by the way, which is strongly linked to having this growth mindset. If you ask that question, what needs to happen to get to acceptance? Right. And maybe you are the CEO and you've got some head of department. You can ask the same question, that head of department, that kind of middle level leader. What needs to happen for you to buy into this change? What needs to happen to get to a point of acceptance? Right. And then you do your best to coach and mentor them to get to that point. Right. Now, of course, they might say, well, you have to increase my salary by 10x. Well, I might do a webinar on negotiation, but that's a story for another time. But all you can do is your best, guys. Can you only do your best? That's right. You can only do your best. So what needs to happen to get to acceptance? Now, when we do think about developing these growth mindset principles, one of the best ways that I know on the planet is continual personal education, right? When you provide training and upskilling to your team, then you're helping them to expand their comfort zone. And when you send them to a good quality training with good quality trainers who are sharing good content, then guess what? You're helping them to develop a growth mindset, both consciously and unconsciously. And wouldn't you know, I have something for you to tick that box. That's right. It's called the NLP Leadership 4-in-1 certification. This is a training designed to upskill your leaders. They learn communication tools and techniques. They learn tools about EQ. They learn how to navigate these changes because in this 5-day program, they are evolving and changing. They're learning communication strategies, 30 different techniques on how to resolve conflict, how to inspire and motivate, how to set SMART goals, even how to coach their subordinates through this change process. So the next one is in July. It's in Bangkok. And of course, we have a special investment for today is just 50,000 baht. Straight talk and clear communication can prevent and resolve 99% of all your problems. So whether you believe it or not, navigating a change process is all about straight talk and clear communication. It's communicating that vision. It's telling people why it's important, addressing those benefits. So if you can do that, you'll be able to much easily be able to navigate your change process. And then finally today to wrap up, right? So how can we apply these principles we've learned today in a sustainable way through 2025 and beyond? Obviously, step number 1, the most important. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it? That's right, Corinne. It's a 15 out of 10. That's how important embodying a growth mindset is, right? It's got to be a 15 out of 10 because you could have the best consultants on the planet. You could be paying millions of dollars for this change process, but you will never, ever, never, ever, ever, never get the buy-in unless you've developed these values of having a growth mindset within the organization. And it won't happen overnight. So you want to start here, right? That's a really, really good place to start. Then again, this is whether you are driving the change yourself or it's come from global or HQ or somewhere like that. You definitely want to do an in-depth analysis of this change that you're looking to implement. So you want to gather information, you want to gather data, you want to assess it. You need to use your critical thinking. You need multiple sources. You need to get it verified. Can you find any case studies? Right. And a lot of which, tools like AI are really, really good for research and double check it. We know that AI can tell some fibs sometimes. So make sure you use AI to help you to filter out large data sets and then have your intern or your juniors to back up and validate that information. But get the data, get the insights, get the fact and the data. And again, this is if you are driving the change or the big boss has given it to you. You still want to do your own process here. Don't rely on intuition alone. Now, once you've done this and you think, okay, yep, this is a good thing, this is going to help the company or our customers or profitability or whatever, now you've got to get really, really clear on your outcomes. Remember those SMART goals we talked about? So, the CEO should have some outcomes or output, the CFO, the director of marketing, the director of sales, the director of operations, and then, of course, their supervisors under them should all have very specific outcomes and deliverables, including, of course, by when, by when, by when, right? And that needs to be thought about as much as you can in advance. I know some of it's a little bit tricky because sometimes it's like it's not ready, aim, fire. Some companies are ready, fire, and then we aim along the way. So you might need to be doing this on the fly, which guess what? What do you think will help the most with that? Having a growth mindset, right? If it's a very, very fast moving company or a startup or whatever, you want to have those principles way, way, way back in the beginning. So you get your clear KPI, your outcomes and deliverables, your by whens, and of course, measurable results by when. Then you had definitely want to be able to clearly communicate that vision, right? So the vision is where are we going? Why are we doing it? Why is it important? Why should I care? And then, of course, begin to map out that strategy, right? Now, you've started mapping out the strategy over here, but now you have to communicate it within the organization. Because if you don't, let me highlight this point. If you don't clearly communicate what's going on, the rumor mill and the gossip machine, they are going to make stuff up. And chances are the stuff that the fear mongers and the gossip and the negative Nancy's and all of that, that will be moving in an opposite direction of where you want the change to actually go. So it's much, much better to share the truth in advance before this, what do they call it, misinformation gets spread throughout the organization. If we just tell the truth and we be upfront about it, then everyone knows, right? And then you'll have many more people, a much higher percentage of the workforce getting on the bus. And if they are on the bus, guess what? It means they're at that point of acceptance. And then finally, experiment and iterate, which is, I think something what Jane mentioned earlier. So, and this is from what's it from? Like from project management circles, where they agile project management. Agile project management came about because someone would want to make a change. Then these software developers or whatever, they would do the change and they go all the way through the project and then they present it to the customer and they said, well, no, that's not what we want. So agile project management is you do a bit, you check in. You do a bit, you check in. You do a bit and you check in. So you can make these iterations. So how do you do that? You can do it with one department as a pilot program or test run. You can do it with a key segment of your market, right? Your existing customers. You can do some surveys. You can get some customer feedback. You can, there's 100 different ways. But you want to then be able to experiment and iterate because there's always, even with your best of intentions and the best of resources, there is still going to be things that you don't know that you don't know. And if you follow this process, I think that will really help you to navigate change in 2025. And then, here's another option. So again, linking back to your growth mindset, the NLP is great for communication, EQ, and that overall mindset. But maybe you already have a growth mindset. What's next for you? You want to become a certified ICF leadership coach. That's happening on the 19th to 20th of July, also in Bangkok. You can join us in Bangkok or you can join us virtually. And the special investment is just 55,000 baht. So, ladies and gents, how did I do for time? Oh, not too bad. 6 minutes over. That's all right, isn't it, Adrian? That's not too bad for me. So if I've not yet connected with you on LinkedIn, you can take a quick screenshot there, or you can just search Luke Salway on LinkedIn. Thank you, everybody. Let me just quickly pull up the gallery here to see these beautiful faces. Thank you for joining me tonight, this evening, wherever you are. I hope you enjoyed the session. G'day, Simon. Good to see you too. And Kunjip, everyone there. Awesome, guys. Awesome. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed. And until next time, stay cool, stay awesome. I will be uploading this to YouTube. So if you got benefit from it, maybe you want to share it to your colleagues. I'll share the details with you a little bit later. Until next time, stay cool, stay awesome, and I'll see you soon, guys. Thank you. Ciao, ciao.